How was your commute today? How are those roads treating you? Feel good? Remember about 10 years ago, we spent about, 10% of the general fund on roads. Now it's closer to 6%. Thank you. And the man responsible for the mess is this man, Patrick Neville, House Minority Leader. How are you?
Doing well. How about you, John?
First of all, I want to thank you for last year. House did something that was amazing because we were told there's not another dime for roads. There's not another dime for roads. The governor said there's not another dime for roads. So the only option was to raise taxes and buy transit and open space and a slush fund for cities. You guys, the House Republicans, came up with how many hundred millions of dollars a year in proposed cuts?
Just a small $597 million.
You found, I'm going to round it up, $600 million a year of reallocations that could go for roads. You brought this up in amendment after amendment after amendment, which of course got shot down because you guys don't run the place. But what an embarrassment to say there's no money. No, there's no need to make it a priority. Why is there so little push to make roads a priority in the legislature?
Well, that's the problem. Everyone says it's a priority, but then when we actually have the option to budget it and make it a priority in the budget like we should, they don't. And I think what's going on is Colorado's fallen victim to a little Johnny joke. No offense, this John has an H. But this little Johnny joke, but basically what's happening is we have little Johnny gets his lunch money, and his parents say, you know, little Johnny hasn't caused any trouble at school, he hasn't caused any controversy, he hasn't gotten called in the principal's office, so let's send him on Monday with his entire week's worth of lunch money. And then come Monday, little Johnny realizes, I can make a lot of friends giving this money out. I bought some candy, I bought some toys, I'm giving it away, and now I'm suddenly popular at school. Problem is, Tuesday morning, little Johnny tells his parents that I spent all the money and it's your fault because you didn't give me enough and I'm going to starve and not be able to feed myself because I don't have enough money for lunch on Tuesday. Now, the joke's not very funny. That's the first problem. But the next problem is little Johnny is our governor and the Democrats in the legislature, and the parents who are stuck with the bill are taxpayers and our voters.
And all right, look, to put that into real terms, the legislature several years ago passed an expansion of Obamacare, Medicaid expansion, and they knew that if they funded it with a tax increase, we'd all vote it down because you'd have to vote on it. So of course they just did it anyway. And so while Medicaid expansion expanded, 368% or something like that, where do you find the money for it? Well, you cut into basic governmental services like roads, and then when people are fed up, they go, we must raise taxes for roads. It is the classic political bait and switch because Johnny needs his lunch money, and parents aren't going to say no to that because it's a core function of being a parent, and a core function of government is to fix the roads, and they're gambling that they can with a straight face say, we don't have any money, you better give us more money to build roads.
That's exactly what's happening. So what we need to do now is actually be responsible parents. Do responsible parents just hand out more money? Or do they actually say, no, let's write a check to the school lunchroom for a specific need, and then we take Johnny's Xbox away and make him pay for it and pay off his debts that he spent all the money on the previous day. And that's where we're at now, and I think that's basically what the Fix Our Damn Roads initiative does. Is force us politicians to act right.
And in full disclosure, people should know that you're fully aware of what we're trying to do at the Independence Institute, which is a citizens' initiative to do what you're describing, which is to say, all right, legislature, we will let you write a check, that is, go into debt for what you guys planned on doing, $3.5 billion.
Right.
Not for the transit, not for the open space, not for the bike trails, all the other slush fund things that you had in, but for roads and
right.
bridges, which we are in dire need of. And in exchange, you guys have to come up with the $300 million a year carrying costs.
Right, half of what we came up with last year.
Right.
Half of what's available in the budget right now.
Half of what you came up with your reallocations before some Republicans squished out and raised our taxes by another nearly $600 million a year. Pardon me for saying this, but you guys are swimming in money that should be spent on roads. Am
Right.
I wrong on this?
No, you are absolutely right. And it drives me insane that everyone says this is the number one priority. Roads is the number one priority. Well, if it is, let's make it a priority. Let's show it. In fact, I think what their priority is a tax increase. And they realize that people are so sick of waiting in roads. They're so sick of waiting in traffic, sitting in traffic, taking their kids to school, no matter what it is. They think this is the one thing that Colorado voters might actually vote to increase their own taxes. So it's the one thing they're holding hostage to make sure they get more of your money.
We don't have the money for this. But how in the world do you get out the message that you're not raising taxes to fix your roads? You are paying taxes to fix the whole of Obamacare that you weren't asked about, and you didn't have a chance to vote on that. It seems to me, tell me if I'm wrong, the intellectually honest thing here to do is to have a tax increase vote on whether we want to expand Medicaid 368%.
That would be the intellectual honest thing to do, and quite frankly, I don't know why we're spending so much time on the governor's budget itself. For me, I think the biggest thing that we should start with when we start this figure setting process is we should start with Mr. Goose Egg. Let's start with zero, and let's make the departments actually prove line for line what they're spending their money on and make them actually prove that they need this. It drives me nuts. We talked about 267. One of the things that I voted against the bill, didn't like the bill, but one of the things I actually did like in there was it told the governor, give us what you would do if you had to force a 2% increase. And I mean, come on, 2%, that's nothing. Any family can do that. But just tell us what you would do if you had a 2% decrease. And he couldn't even do that. He couldn't even give us that. 2%.
Really?
And that's really all we're talking about.
By
the
the way,
2%
we're
would take
talking
care of all of our
about
problems.
The entire budget, including some of the federal money that comes in, you're talking about nearly a $36 billion annual budget. We want $300 million carrying costs to fix the damn roads. And what I'm getting from special interests everywhere is, there's no money. You can't do that. We'll have to cut these very important projects. You put truth to the lie by putting up $600 million worth of reallocations.
Right, just one amendment, simply one amendment alone said, let's hold all dollars at last year's levels. So no cuts. Everyone says, what are you going to cut? What are you going to cut? No cuts. We'll give them the same amount they got last year. That's $325 million without a single cut. But we all like to say that we don't do Washington-style politics here in Colorado, but we certainly like to do Washington-style budgets. Because once the governor issues his budget, then all of a sudden if we take away anything from that, it's called a cut. Even though it's not a cut, they still get more than they did last year, but somehow that's a cut because the governor proposed more.
People also need to be warned about the change in language. You know, there's always linguistic warfare goes on. This is a bad analogy, but there was a time way back when having a gay old time meant you had a lighthearted, good, happy time. Gay now means, of course, homosexual. Fine, we all know that. Transportation, in most people's minds, means roads and bridges. That terminology has now morphed into, well, yeah, it means roads and bridges, but also trains and trolleys and open space and bike lanes and urban growth boundaries and all sorts of things that might impact transportation. So I want to be very careful that we use the words roads and bridges, because we're going to have to give up the word transportation, because that means more transit.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think if we keep using the word transportation, pretty soon we're going to see Skate City get a big subsidy because they probably fit under the Democrats' model of what they consider transportation.
And by the way, RTD, which carries 3% of the commute, has a budget that's $1 billion more than CDOT, which carries the other 97%. So, you know, the reason we're in a traffic jam is not that we don't have enough money in transit. It's that we're putting too much of our money into transit, not into our roads.
Couldn't agree more.
Last question, close on time. Will there be a tax increase passed through the legislature this year for transportation?
No.
Not going to happen?
Nope. I think we got more money than we had. We have way more money this year than we had last year, and we can get it done with our current budget without taking more from your wallet.
Thank you for fighting the good fight down there. It's a lonely job, and better you than me. Read me in the Denver Post. Listen for me on KHOW Radio. Tell a friend, and we'll see you next week.